Hey, this is Eugene Driscoll of ValleyIndy.org. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indies podcast. I'm joined, as always, by fellow Valley Indy reporter Ethan Fry. Hello, Ethan.
Hello.
Today's episode finds us on the road. U.S. Senator Chris Murphy was in Derby August 24th, today, which is what is Thursday, at Bad Sons, a brewery that opened on Roosevelt Drive in Derby in July. And we were there to talk about the Bad Sons property, a former, tool and die place that has been reborn. It's a good redevelopment project, there in Derby. And those type of projects are sorely needed. But then, you got a U.S. Senator in the room. Might as well throw some Trump questions at him, right?
Absolutely.
He's a Democrat. Trump's a Republican. We might as well try to go for some clickbait, try to stir the pot a little bit. And that was Ethan's job there, right?
Yep. What I try to do, man.
So we tried to ask Senator Murphy just a bunch of questions about things happening on the national level. So Bad Sons, by the way, it's started by two brothers from Shelton, the DaSilva brothers, who have been in the craft beer world for about 20 years. And the business is continuing. Did you just... Was there some kind of gargle?
Some sort of biological process.
We'll try to edit that out. So what I would say was Bad Sons is continuing this reputation that Derby has as this place to get a variety of good craft beer.
Yeah.
They're starting to, like Ansonia downtown, like Main Street there, here in Ansonia, that's where our Valley Indy office is, on 158 Main Street. Couple of restaurants have
Restaurant Row.
Right, they're trying to establish themselves as this growing place for new restaurants, and Derby is sort of organically becoming a craft beer destination. And if you want proof, what do you want? Proof? Okay, fine. Do drop in. Roosevelt Drive and North Avenue is right down the road. Really popular place. I can't even
started it all. Really.
I can't even get in there anymore. Not because it's crowded, just they don't want me. And that's the other side of town. You have the Hops Company, which is going gangbusters from everything I hear, same type of deal. And I'm assuming like everyone at this point, because I know when we would write about craft beer in some way, we'd have to have those weird paragraphs in a story explaining what it was. All right, so probably for a second there, we just had to stop for a second because we had a phone call. But what I was saying was whenever we would write about craft beer in the past, we would have to define what craft beer is, but I think since it's 2017,
it's like taken over now.
Everybody knows what it is, right? So I don't have to stop this podcast and explain to you what.
We have former colleagues from the News Times who've written entire books about craft beer.
Yeah, it's a whole like subgenre now. Like a lot of the bigger media
Eric
companies.
Offgang, shout out.
There you go. A lot of the bigger media companies won't send somebody. They didn't send somebody to this event, but they will have a whole beer columnist or something like that. And one of those guys, I think his name is Will Siss for the Rep Am. He's a freelance writer. He's appearing at Seymour Historical Society.
Oh, right,
This weekend. Go to valleyindy.org for more. Or, buy an ad. We'll read the whole thing. So, anyway, but just to give you an idea of how craft beer is becoming an important part of our local economy, according to the Brewers Association, that's an industry trade group, the number of breweries in the U.S. grew 15% in 2015. That was a total of 4,269 breweries. And that was the most at any time in U.S. history.
Wow.
Until this year, Trump gets elected, and now there are 5,562 breweries in the U.S. Even more. A new record. Ladies and gents. So anyway, Chris Murphy was at this thing, Senator Murphy. He shows up because this was the former Manger, I think it was called, metal something
company. Is it Manger or Manger? I don't know.
I wish I knew. We weren't born and raised in the
die
Valley.
casting business, which had been in existence until like a year or so ago.
Yeah, it had been winding down, but the only thing that I knew about it really was that, I mean, I live on Hawthorne Avenue, which is, you got Route 34 and then Park Avenue, and this brewery is between those two roads, and then there's a big hill, and I live at the top of the hill on Hawthorne Avenue, so I kind of look over these places, although I'm more down near the Yale Boathouse, not near this new brewery, Bad Sons. But yeah, I just remember every once in a while they would get a call because it looked like something was burning in there, and it was just like whatever old school
smoke
equipment.
Condition. Yeah,
they were smelting in there, so every once in a while in the middle of the night it would look like the whole building was burning. But so it's the Roosevelt Drive in Derby, you got a bunch of old sort of ugly buildings there, that were once thriving, and we've seen some reuse. You had Mr. Junker, and they come in, and the Roosevelt Tower Antique Shop took over one of the big ones. Books by the Falls is still there.
Yeah, Books by the Falls,
that's
the mainstay.
That's in the Bad Sons development there. And then like across the street, you got Derby Cellular, the former Derby Cellular, and then like a property sort of right next to it. I don't know if they're connected, but they're looking not good. They're looking like you could probably maybe go in there and find maybe some copper. If you're, Valley Indy's always looking to diversify the revenue. They're just not good. And then you have a million cars going by all day, and you have these underdeveloped properties. But then you got the Dewdrop right across the street there, booming. So it makes sense that these properties are being reused, and then
on weekends in like the summer, in spring, you've got the Yale Boathouse, as you mentioned, like that. There's tons of people coming in from out of the New Haven area. I mean, they're not. I don't know.
They do nothing.
They go there, watch the race, and
they leave.
Yeah.
But that's what are they going to do other than get gas?
Yeah. If there were options, who knows?
Yeah. So we just thought this was an interesting, and so this podcast isn't about beer per se. All right, you beer snobs out there, go take your skinny jeans and your Brooklyn hipster self and go, whatever. Go read the Connecticut Post if you want to read about what types of beer this place has.
Is this a session IPA or
it's
more?
Very much like a 1972 Nixon.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a Spiro Agnew taste to it. I don't get any of that.
Hoppy? Is it hoppy? Is it an American hops or more of like a Bavarian hops? I don't know. We'll leave that to them.
But this place has $5 beer. You can get a beer for $5 there, which I noted in this interview.
Brewed right in Derby.
Right. So maybe should we bring up the interview with the owner first? Maybe that's the way to do this. It's owned by two brothers. Like I said, it's Mark DaSilva and William DaSilva. I'm sorry. That's the guy we used to work with at the News Times in Danbury. I apologize. Mike.
DeSalvo.
Yeah, I'm just all over the place. I'm sorry. It's 6:30. William DaSilva.
Yeah, there you go.
Also a well-known Danbury name.
Yes.
And Mark DaSilva from Shelton. And here's one of them. We'll find out when I start talking about Bad Sons Brewery. So what's your name?
Bill DaSilva.
Bill DaSilva. And your brother's name is?
Mark DaSilva.
Mark DaSilva. Okay. So I know you guys are from Shelton. I talked to one of you months and months ago when you first had the...
Probably me. It might have been me.
I think it was right when you were making the application to the PNC. But I mean, obviously, looking at it now, we're on location. You got a million cars passing you all the time.
It's a great location.
But then when when you look at, sometimes people look at Roosevelt Drive, they just see dilapidated buildings a lot of times. What did you see that was different?
We saw a brewery, a building that should be a brewery. It was meant to be a brewery. And we've been driving by this since little kids. And since then, not as little kids, but as we got into business, which was 20 years ago, our dream was to open up a brewery in the Valley. Now, we've done just about everything else, and about 10 years ago, we really started looking at buildings, and this building was number one on the list. And it just took, 8 years or so until the original owners, the owners of the property, decided to retire and close their business, and then that's when we just went.
Sort of a natural evolution.
Yeah, and it really, it was really driven by my brother, who's the head brewer, and he had spent a lot of time talking to the owner and coming into the building and just looking at it. It was built for the Kellogg family. Okay. It was 1904, and they used to fill milk bottles in here. So they used to make the milk bottles next door at Roosevelt Towers, and they filled the milk bottles from their farm up the road, the Kellogg farm.
Yeah.
And so it's just the history is just great. But then when you come into it, you could tell that we didn't have to do anything to the floors of the sloping of the floors because they all pitched to drains because of the milk. That's one of the biggest issues breweries have. They got in old buildings, they got to rip up the floors and re-pour them. We didn't have to do that.
A huge cost savings, I guess.
A huge cost savings, and we didn't have to do that. We had to put some drains and do some work, but 99% of the floor was pitched to areas where we just put drains in that used to have drains in way back when that we just redid, and it worked out great.
So yeah, that was Bill DaSilva, and I apologize for not having his name when we started recording it, but that's who I talked to, and he was talking about how they saved the money. They didn't have to rip out those old floors there because it was already they had a drain.
Yeah, when you have a job like this, you just learn so much interesting stuff like that you never.
What I cut out of the interview was, do you know what else he found there? I didn't.
Jimmy.
Ghosts.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Tons and tons of ghosts.
He talks about the Roosevelt Tower where there was an actual ghost hunter investigation.
I was a part of it. Let's see what else he has to say. And then what about, I know one of the impediments to redevelopment a lot of times in the Valley, is particularly in Derby and Ansonia, is you don't know what's in the ground, you got to get it tested.
True.
Just to get to the point where you want to make an offer on a building, there's all these unknowns.
And we went through that also, we really did, but thankfully we had a lot of help because we're not experienced in that. We've been brewing beer, for 20 years, so that's a different aspect. And
how'd you tackle that?
Well, when we got involved and told the city what we wanted to do, they really helped us. They got us to, it's called the Naugatuck Valley
Council of Governments.
Council of Governments, the COG. Sure. And Rick from there and Arthur. Rick Dunn and Arthur.
Okay, yeah.
They really guided us. They went out and got a grant to do the work that for the testing. So through that, they did all this testing. And to be honest, it all came out. It came clean, but nobody knew. Like you said, you don't know.
And this is something you have to do.
You have
to. It's basically the form. It doesn't mean it's contaminated.
It doesn't mean it, but you have to do it, or else you're liable. Yes, and it's big bucks.
So if you had not had,
we wouldn't have been able to do it. Okay. We probably two things. We wouldn't have done it because there was too much liability if we bought the property, because the original owner didn't want to do anything. He's like, selling it as is. I don't care, and because he said it was not contaminated. And he had been here 60 years. So yeah, I thought that was interesting there. Sometimes on our Facebook page, like a couple of weeks ago, we posted about bring the Bridgeport Bluefish to Ansonia Derby. I just threw that out there as a discussion point. And one or two of the comments was like, we don't want to spend any public money on any of this. Which I get. You don't want to spend $1 billion, to build a new stadium for the New York Yankees, although that's what these, big municipalities do. However, if you want to get a Brownsfield project, redeveloped and working again, something that people can go to, enjoy, and good for the community, you got to get that federal money in there. You heard them say if it wasn't for, and this is, and like the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, that's federal state money that's coming down to get these grants so it can be explored, because these developers don't want to, or any business owner doesn't want to have to pay for it. It's just exorbitant. You could pay for all that out of your pocket and then find out that, well, you got some junk in the ground from when it was a dye place, and now you got to clean that up before you do anything. You're broke, and nothing, that just keeps these properties undeveloped. That's one of the major hurdles. And you heard him say if it wasn't for that money, and I think he got deep money maybe. I think it was like $85,000. I'm not 100%, but they would not have done that without that help. So that's informative, right? Yeah,
we're
not talking about what kind of IPA they sell, but I'm sure people also want to hear
about grants. I went to a thing in Shelton Wednesday about they just got a EPA grant to do some environmental assessment on the few of the remaining riverfront properties down in their own redevelopment zone, and it was much the same thing. It was the thinking is like you could put a little of this federal government money in to assess the properties, and that acts as like a catalyst. Hopefully there's not anything major in the ground. It's just it acts as a catalyst for that private investment to come in later is how they view it.
And that's exactly what sort of happened here. Although I guess Bill DaSilva was saying what he did, they've been eyeing this property forever. It didn't just happen overnight. And when it finally became available, they went right to City Hall and said, this is what we want to do here, but, we're not exactly sure. We know how to do what we got to do, but you need to help us with sort of the environmental remediations of where do we go. And I guess the mayor's office and the grant writer over there and the head of economic economic development, according to Bill DaSilva, and that's Leslie Creane. I also just say Creane. I mess it up every single time. But she pointed them to Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments and all that, and look at that. At the end of the day, a nice story. And I guess maybe we'll skip around a little bit here. Let's segue. Well, we won't segue. This is not a segue at all. But Senator Murphy was there, right? And me and Ethan had come up with a bunch of questions to ask Senator Murphy. And why don't we... What's the first question you asked him? Do you remember? I guess we asked him what part he played in this. And we'll probably skip over that because we can explain it in a line, because according to his press office, the William and Mark DaSilva, the owners, were having a hard time just getting a response from the Federal Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. Basically, they needed somebody to say, hey, where's this? What's going on? And so it sounds like Murphy's office made a phone call or wrote a letter, did something.
Work, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. To help them along. So I guess the government on just about every level helped this thing and helped this property get redeveloped. So what's the second question we asked?
It was about Trump's infrastructure plan.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just thought...
Or what Murphy would say was the lack thereof in infrastructure.
Spoiler alert!
We'll get to it.
But yeah, I was wondering... this infrastructure plan, and that was something like Kurt Miller had pointed out, the Seymour first selectman, when Trump was first elected. Hey, if he does infrastructure, that's what we need that. Investment in our roads, the highways, the train lines.
And plenty of Democrats agreed.
Valley needs that.
Bernie Sanders agreed. Yeah.
So let's hear what Senator Murphy had to say about that.
How's President Trump's infrastructure plan going, and when do you think the Valley can expect, if ever, any of that investment?
Well, President Trump's infrastructure plan doesn't exist. He mentioned it during the campaign, and then he never did anything about it. We're 8 months into his presidency, and he hasn't even lifted a finger to try to propose something to Congress. I'm in the Senate in the minority, but we put together a plan. We just decided not to wait for Trump, and we put together $1 trillion investment plan, put it out there for the president to look at, put it out there for Mitch McConnell and Republicans to look at, but they're not moving on infrastructure. So I think it's pretty wild. The president talks so much about rebuilding America, and then he hasn't done a single thing about it since he's been in office. But if he does decide to work on it, I've got good ideas. A lot of my Democratic colleagues have good ideas. We just need, the president and the majority Republicans who run the Senate to, start working on it.
All right, so that was Senator Murphy in Derby today at Bad Sons Brewery on Roosevelt Drive, talking about the infrastructure plan. Apparently there is none. But didn't we have Infrastructure Week a couple of weeks ago? I have a T-shirt.
I thought so. It was supposed to be Infrastructure Week, but that press conference sort of became known for something else.
I don't remember what.
Many sides, both sides.
That was the one?
I believe that was... I think it was infrastructure. That was the ostensible purpose of that, I think.
So what else did we ask Murphy? I wanted to ask him...
sort of pursuant to that last question about, the president didn't follow through on anything, there has been all this talk from mainly sort of California's House Democratic congressional delegation.
They're all high.
Is the president, should his mental health be evaluated and analyzed possibly for invoking the 25th Amendment?
I kept seeing, I saw that article on Politico, and I was like, wait, are these state California representatives, but no, yeah, these are Congress people.
And Murphy, well, we'll let you hear what Murphy has to say about that.
That's always good.
What's your take on the California Democratic House delegation raising questions about the president's mental health? One of the representatives spoke about invoking the 25th Amendment. Another wants a resolution for the president to get a psychological evaluation. Any thoughts or reaction to that?
Well, I don't think the president is being any more reckless than he was during the campaign. I mean, he doesn't seem terribly different to me as president of the United States than he was as a candidate. And, by and large, he's doing what he said he was going to do when he ran. Now, I thought those were pretty bad ideas as a candidate, so I think they're just as bad now that he's president. But you can't, impeach a president for doing what he promised to do during the campaign. I know a lot of people are angry that he won, but I don't think that the 25th Amendment is, necessarily the right way to go right now. Ultimately, maybe there is real fire underneath all this smoke on the question of the Trump campaign's potential collusion with the Russian government. That might give rise to a conversation about his fitness to stay in office, but we don't yet have all the facts we need for that conversation.
All right, so he didn't
take the bait really to say the president's crazy and we have to invoke the 25th Amendment to.
Although what the California people were saying, one of them was saying he's got to take some kind of test. He's got to take. Like, remember in high school they would give you that test to see what kind of career you'd fall into. They want him to take something.
The ASVAB.
Yeah, they want him to take the ASVAB. So, all right, should we switch back to the brewery now? That was we're sort of going back and forth, but why not, right? Keep people interested. What else do you want to know about the brewery? We talked about what the best-selling beer there was and things like that, and also what else the DaSilva brothers. In this case, Bill. I didn't talk to the other DaSilva brother, but now we've got a brewery. We've got the Dewdrop Inn at the corner there. Very popular establishment, known for its wings and steak nights, along with its giant beer selection and just kind of cool location and atmosphere. And now you've got this brewery opening, which can fit like 150 people, and there's plenty of parking too. Like there was a ton of parking there. Now, what else do we need on that block? What else can we see if these properties are redeveloped? And I thought a natural would be a restaurant, because they don't serve food per se at the brewery. It's a tasting room, but they work with Roseland. There's up the street there on Hawthorne Avenue, famous pizza, and the Dewdrop brings their wings on certain nights, and you can, we'll put a link into the Bad Sons Facebook page, or you lazy, just go find it. People can find it. What do you want from me? But anyway, but I would think that a restaurant would be a natural.
Yeah. Go have a beer, then have go across the street and have dinner.
What would better complement that place? And it wouldn't take away. I don't think from the other places. So, and that also brought in their hours, because we were saying, well, they close at 9 p.m. But he had an interesting take on that. There's a whole different mindset with the brewery, I guess. So here's more of Bill DaSilva talking about Bad Sons Brewery in Derby.
What's your best seller so far? I know it's early.
Right now, our best sellers are the Con Ale and the Skip Days. I think one of the reasons for that is because people try, and our flights. So our flights, we sell 2 flights. We have 9 beers on tap right now. We sell 2 flights, 4 beers each flight.
Okay.
And they get to pick what they want. So we sell more flights than anything right now because I think people are just trying. But our Con Ale and our Skip Days are our biggest pint sellers as of right now.
And I'm looking $5 for a beer. Like walking in here, I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those fancy skinny jeans places. It's gonna be $9.
This is the Valley. We're from the Valley, and it's called Bad Sons. That's the last thing.
I live right through the woods there. You could almost see my house.
If somebody walked in with skinny jeans, we'd probably kick them out.
No skinny jeans.
Good to know.
We should say Bad Sons in case, if you don't know, it stands for something.
Beacon Falls, Ansonia, Derby, Shelton, Oxford, Naugatuck, Seymour. Sorry.
Or maybe it's Seymour first and then Shelton last.
No, come on. Seymour's the last. Come on.
Thanks for naming Seymour last. Like Murph, or what's his name? Miller doesn't.
He's gonna
bust our chops
come in
enough.
here next appearance on our podcast. He's gonna come in here guns blazing because of that.
All right, you want to go for a little more?
Now, what about, maybe I'm biased here, but it's good to see this property redeveloped in a way that it's gone beyond its previous potential.
Yeah.
You know, it's a brewery.
It's been an evolution from a milk bottling plant to a brewery, right?
And it's like so many of these old, they become like self-storage places.
Yeah.
A lot of them. If this is a catalyst, would you like to see like a restaurant open next to you? What are some other complementary things that could happen?
I think I would love to see this area, and I think it's going to happen. We've already talked to developers that have come to us to come see us and see how we're doing, to be like, hey, is this real? Like, can we develop in Derby? And now that they see us here and see what we've done, matter of fact, we got contacted by a developer for next door that's been looking at next door to do apartments and mix retail. And once he saw this, he's like, wow, this is great. Because for apartments and that type of thing, you need amenities. You need something
right, yeah.
that the apartments could be there and say, hey, that's cool. I could walk to the brewery. I could do this. By having the Dewdrop, right there, they've done great, right? So it's even with us when we came in, we're like, see, hey, they're small, but still, it's like people come here. So this could happen, and it really has. And so we'd love to see more restaurants, more retail. This whole area, plus with the downtown, with what they're doing, to develop kind of like Shelton has. It is the next step. Shelton's kind of it's got to happen.
Odds, right?
It's got to happen.
What about your hours now? I know it's like on some nights you close about 9. Is that like the set hours for them?
I interrupt real fast. The next part is where he talks about his hours of operation, because they close like at 9 o'clock and they're not open. They close at 9 o'clock on certain days, and they're not open 7 days a week. And I was like, well, what are they, just experimenting? That's sort of odd. But then he gives an interesting answer.
Place, do you think you'll expand going forward?
One of the reasons that we do close early and are not open 7 days a week is because we're not a bar or a restaurant. We're a tasting room, and we want to complement the restaurants and the bars in the area.
Gotcha.
So, and that's one of the reasons why we work with the Dewdrop, with Jay at the Dewdrop. And Wednesday night is Dewdrop night. And, we don't have food truck. He delivers his wings here, and he does a tremendous job. And they sell a ton of wings. And then Thursday night's Roseland night. Roseland's never delivered a pizza in their lives. They delivered last Thursday here 80 pizzas. 80 pizzas.
80 pizzas.
It's a lot of za.
From Roseland, which is up the corner there. So that's pretty cool. So you're getting some other businesses, benefiting from the arrival of Bad Sons here in West Derby. So, all right, so let's maybe get some Leslie Creane going. That's the mayor's chief of staff, the economic development guru there in Derby City Hall. I talked to her for a while about what this means for Derby and sort of the vision, what's going on with that area. What are they've been tweaking the zoning there to try to encourage different types of businesses, because the use that was there, I guess even 20 years ago, 50 years ago, that type of stuff doesn't come back. These
industrial,
giant, heavy industrial, large scale. You're not really gonna, they were built on the river, and the river's not really. It's more recreation now. So anyway, here is Leslie Creane, the Derby guru.
So I know Derby, the city of Derby, the P&Z recently was discussing, and maybe they enacted new zoning regulations for this whole Roosevelt Drive.
Yes, we have new Bill District regulations, and they went into effect a couple of months ago. We're actually really excited about the opening of the Bad Sons Brewery. There are several things about the brewery that are wonderful. One is that we finally have a really an up-and-coming business of substantial size that has taken over one of the mills that is meant for people to socialize. So it combines not only the beer that's brewed at the brewery, but it is also, they have a system worked out with Roslyn Pizza and with the Dewdrop Inn to bring food in. So you can order food from there, and it's all coordinated, which is just wonderful. We've got businesses now that have figured out how to work together. to help each other so that there's not that competitive edge in a negative way. So we're really excited about that. We're also looking and expect this business to be a catalyst for other businesses in the area to rework and renovate and upgrade some of the other existing mill buildings. We have a new owner for Derby Cellular. We're waiting to see what exactly is going to happen with that.
Because I know that had been purchased at one point from a gentleman who had business dealings up in upstate New York, but that man or that company no longer owns Derby Cellular?
It was just flipped within the last couple of months. Okay. So we've got that. We have a new owner for that, and we're working with him to work on a new vision for that piece of property.
Because these are challenging, obviously. Like this property, this is probably one of the smaller when you look up and down Roosevelt Drive from, say, the Dewdrop Inn all the way up to the Yale Boathouse. What are the challenges to getting something like this off the ground?
The biggest challenge to getting, as with anything else, getting projects like this off the ground is to find people who are willing to either purchase or do a long-term lease on the property, who are really dedicated to what they want to do and understand that this is a perfect place to be a catalyst for new stuff. They want to be these are owners that want to be on the cutting edge. And the DaSilva brothers have absolutely fit that bill. They've been fantastic. This is what they wanted. And we're so glad to have them here in Derby.
Okay, and while I was talking to Leslie, she actually brought up the Walmart Plaza on the other side of Derby, right? She was talking about how there were basically 3 areas that the mayor has been concentrating on in Derby, one of them being Roosevelt Drive and this project here that's up and underway, and also the new zoning that has been taking place on that side of Derby. And then you have the redevelopment zone, which we've talked about extensively and done previous podcasts on and written a million stories on as recently as like 4 weeks ago. You got that plan happening. We'll see what happens. There's an election coming up. We got a primary September 12th and then election November 3rd. So the future of that plan, I think, depends on who gets elected. That's America. Then on the other side of Derby, in East Derby, you got Walmart, which sits there like a big busted tooth.
A carbuncle on the east side of Derby.
Right. You got
one could say.
Okay. You got the empty Walmart and the former Adams Market right next to it. And one day we'll get the landlord or leasing agent on the phone. They'll return a call. Maybe we should I don't want to say we'll stalk them, but we can't get them on. So she brought it up and she said that the mayor talks to a leasing agent or a broker of some kind once a month, I guess, to check in on that property. And there's no news. So I asked I asked her. She brings it up, and I ask her like, "What's
Stu Leonard's isn't knocking that door down?
Whole Foods is nah." So
they're too busy merging with Amazon.
Well, the whole thing is like retail. Like even the retail of a decade ago, isn't what it used to be.
Unless it's
just
Bridgeport Avenue in Shelton, apparently. But yeah, and then especially a site that big. You're not going to, there's only a handful of players who would even be able to take over a building that big. And one of them is Walmart, and they just moved out. And, there's a BJ's in Derby already.
Right. Target's and Sonia. Yeah, what do you do in that place?
You're not going to get somebody to just take over all that whole thing.
It's like our factory, the middle-class factory jobs went out, and they've been replaced by lower-paying retail jobs. And now those are going out, and then we're all being replaced by robots. It's a Happy New Year.
Obviously, on the other side of Derby is the Walmart Plaza that we are in touch. The mayor is in touch with the leasing agent every month, and that is, unfortunately, the city does not have as much of a stake in that because we're not owners in any way. That's a completely private market, transactionable area.
Is there anything with the current market that's making it tough to get a store in there? I mean, it seems like the days of those big boxes and retail in general is changing so fast. Like, what's the biggest stumbling block there? Even though you're not, the city's not directly involved, you're not out hunting for tenants, but from your view.
The biggest stumbling block to the Walmart Plaza and to any area that's a big box is that more and more people are buying online. And so those big boxes are starting to become less and less. The other thing is, even though it doesn't feel like it and everybody was used to having a grocery store there, we know that if you just look at the numbers, and this is one of the problems with doing market analyses, is that they're just about the numbers. If you ask people, they want a grocery store there. If you just look at the numbers, it looks like we have enough grocery stores here in Derby.
Because you can go to Ansonia, Shelton if you're so inclined. There are
And there's the Stop and Shop and BJ's and there Aldi's and other places within Derby. But if you add those all up and do the math the way that market researchers do them, it looks from afar, if you've never been here and don't know the people, it looks from afar like we're loaded up on grocery stores. If you ask people around the area, if you ask people in Orange, what do you think should happen there? Everyone is saying a grocery store. Again, it's a private market setup. The city does not have an ownership stake in it, so there isn't that much that the city can do in terms of pushing specific businesses there.
Okay, yeah. So look at this. I mean, this podcast is completely worth its money, if you ask me. I mean, first of all, people are not charging you anything for it. And we got a U.S. senator on here. We got brewery talk. We got business talk. And then we throw in Walmart and the problems of trying to get a tenant in that place. What else do you people want? Oh, maybe some more from a U.S. senator?
We got it. We got it coming.
What else did you ask Senator Murphy to?
This is something that
don't say what he said.
I've seen more and more of is speculation about Murphy in 2020 and beyond. Will he be running for president someday?
Are you going to run for president?
No, I've got my mind focused on doing this job. I've got a re-election of my own up in 2018, so all my focus right now is on doing the best job I can for the state of Connecticut, and hoping that the people of this state send me back to the Senate for a second term.
That's what's known in the biz as a non-denial denial.
Well, he said no. He started off saying he said no. I mean,
it was like, my focus is on 2018.
Then he read but he started off with a no. So
we'll see. I think there's
what we should have done
there's
is
plenty of people I know who want him to run, but they're fans of his. We'll see.
What were some of those beers at that place? Con Ale? Was that the one?
Con Ale, Flight Risk.
Should have hit him up with another Flight Risk. Another two of those. Then asked him these questions. Next time, though, we'll get you one day, Murphy. All right. And then this is personally my favorite question, even though it's a week old. Steve Bannon left the White House, I guess, about a week ago. Yeah, it was last Friday. And I guess he left in the morning and was at Breitbart running their news meeting, or at least sitting in on their news meeting by that afternoon. And then the Breitbart staff, and that's the right-wing, alt-right sort of website, And I don't know. I'm just sort of fascinated by the whole. I mean, I have a buddy.
Who are themselves the subject of a prankster, like the email prankster. I'm forgetting his name. Like they were. I didn't follow. They got stung a little this week too. What's
fascinating, just to me, I got a buddy was in my wedding party. I have like two friends in the world. I had two people in my wedding party, and one of them was a guy I went to college with, Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. And he was like, I don't know, a sensible guy. He was like part of the campus ministry, feed the homeless, do all that kind of stuff, go to other countries, a campus minister. And just in like the last year, he's become like really sort of radical. And he was a reporter with me. I got him a job at a newspaper. We sat next to each other. So.
Radical left, right?
Right.
Okay.
Radical right, like to the point where it's which is fine. I don't blame him for having his political beliefs, but this was a guy who was in the bit, albeit we were at the lowest level, even lower than the Valley Indy, of journalism, right? But we saw, the Democrats don't control the media. I worked with a lot of left wing, right wing, middle of the road. They're all over the place, and it's.
Yeah,
at that level, and most of them are owned by corporations. Like the money's the god, and selling. It's not really. There's the political
I think
ideology.
In my experience, anyway, I've only worked in the Northeast, but it seems that the reporters themselves are, if anything, sort of left of center. By no means all like that. But then, like, the owner of the paper will be, like, just, like, a solid, like, Chamber of Commerce Republican.
Yeah.
In most cases, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I've
there's,
worked
like, a balance, I guess.
I've worked with
through that.
reporters all over the place.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
me too.
But anyway, now he's become my problem with this guy is that he believes he's made up his own hashtag because he believes the Democrats control the
always
media. Yeah, if you make up your own hashtag,
Yeah.
that's. And wait, let me just move this audio down because I'm going to run into it. Hold on. No, I still love the guy, but he worked in the media. He saw what it was like. You know, it wasn't controlled by. It was controlled by a corporation. It was corporate. Network, you know, that 1976 movie, to me, was a more accurate description of the media that I was sort of a part of.
Yeah.
It was, you didn't know who your boss was. Your boss was some faceless guy. Who knew? But then, you know, the Trump administration has Steve Bannon in there, who's literally he's a publisher. He's from a media outlet, but somehow that's okay. He left his job in the White House, went to his job in a media company. By the end of the day, I just don't. All right, but I don't understand why that isn't a problem for like my buddy. That he's cool with. And you know, Breitbart is clearly propaganda. I mean, that's that guy's political view. And now that he's out of office, or out of the White House, I mean, out of his job there, he is now clearly directing coverage there, and they're going after Jared.
Javanka.
Yeah. It's just sort of amusing to watch. So anyway, we're a week late on this, but we ask, and Trump didn't do anything crazy today, so we couldn't really get a newsworthy. We're not going to make Tom Dudchick's Capitol Report. No way. We're not going to make that the website or the TV show. But here's Ethan asking Senator Murphy about Steve Bannon.
If you do run, you'll announce it on valleyindy.org.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
Do you read Breitbart? And if so, are you surprised by the shots they're taking at the president's son-in-law?
I don't pay a lot of attention to Breitbart. I do follow them on my Twitter feed because I think it's important to, hear what a mouthpiece of the president is saying. But I don't give a lot of deep analysis to what Breitbart is putting out there.
Do you foresee a government shutdown as President Trump threatened if there's no federal funding to build the border wall with Mexico?
I worry about it, and the president made it pretty clear in his Phoenix speech that he is going to shut down the government if he doesn't get his border wall funded. Republicans and Democrats don't support the border wall. I still haven't met a single Republican senator who wants that wall. None of the border states want that wall. But the president does have the ability to veto spending bills and shut down the government if he wants. It would be a deeply unpopular thing to do and a very reckless thing.
I kind of feel like Murphy gave us the high hat because I forgot at the beginning of that, we had asked him if he announces a run for president, will he do it on the Valley Indy Podcast? And he was not playing. That was just glossed right over that. Wasted my time, kid. Wasted my time.
Do not have to worry about that, yeah.
So then at this point,
I won't.
At this point, Ethan is essentially stuttering John. At least for
but it turns out better than his interview with Morton Downey, at least.
That's a great one.
I wasn't.
Or Ted Williams.
It wasn't fisticuffs, at least.
So let's skip to the last question, and then we'll come back and say our goodbyes.
Last question: Mayweather or McGregor? What's your take?
I got to root for McGregor. Mayweather's a bad dude, right? And I find it very hard to root for somebody with a past like that. And you always got to root for the underdog. It'd be wild to see, somebody not trained in that art be able to pull it off. So I don't know that I'm going to be watching, but I'm as interested in this thing as anybody else.
All right, hey. I think that's a wrap. That was a little different, Ethan, right? We went out there with our iPhones, tried splicing together some audio, do things we were not trained to do in any way. But I thought it went all right.
We got to sit down with a sitting senator.
Yeah,
so.
we should thank Senator Chris Murphy for taking the time to talk to us, and a big special thanks to William DaSilva for chatting with us about Bad Sons Brewery. It was opened by William and his brother Mark. We had Leslie Creane on from the city of Derby talking about some economic development and volunteering some information about the Walmart Plaza across on the east side of Derby. We got some Dewdrop shout outs, Roseland the pizza shout outs. And just to wrap up, let me see if I can find to find out more about Bad Sons, the new place in Derby, you can go to badsons.com. or search Bad Sons Beer on Facebook. On Instagram, Bad Sons Beer. And they're at 251 Roosevelt Drive in Derby. You can't miss it.
Plenty of parking available.
Yeah, and you can get on from
Most
Park
nights.
Avenue too, access from both sides of the street there, which is convenient. So it's 7:30 on a Thursday. I am missing tonight's Derby Board of Aldermen meeting. I apologize to the Derby Board of Aldermen, but such is life in a two-person newsroom. So let's add. You want to say goodbye there, Ethan?
Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time. Thank you.